Hello and welcome to In Talks With. I'm Danielle Radojcin. In this episode, my guest is the British artist David Remfry. Born in Worthing and raised in the northern industrial town of Hull, he studied art and moved to London in the 60s, holding his first solo exhibition there in 1973. After suffering a serious illness affecting his respiratory system, he was unable to continue working with oil paints and switched to watercolour. He has subsequently become known for his large-scale watercolour works of landscapes and friends and acquaintances, both famous and otherwise, and especially of his depictions of people dancing. His portraits of the fashion designer Jean Muir and the actor John Gielgud are held at the National Portrait Gallery, as well as which he has work in the permanent collections at the V&A and RA. Over the years, he has enjoyed a strong connection with the USA. In 1980, he had his first show there in Los Angeles, and he spent 20 years in New York, where he lived in the storied Chelsea Hotel, often asking his neighbours, who included the likes of Quentin Crisp and Ethan Hawke, to sit for him. In 2001, he was awarded an MBE for services to British art in America. In 2006, he was elected a member of the Royal Academy of Arts, and last summer he was celebrated for his enthusiastic curation of the summer exhibition, to which he was determined and succeeded in bringing in underrepresented talent. Avowedly unsnobbish, he's also known for painting the interior of the famous tea salon at Fortnum and Mason. I was lucky enough to visit David at his studio in West London, which is in the same building in which he lives, and we spent a leisurely few hours discussing everything from London in the 60s to his friends in fashion to the demise of the Chelsea Hotel and why, in spite of his achievements, he'll never be part of the establishment. Hi, David. I'm so delighted to be here in your studio with you in Kensington.
Hello, Daniela. I'm very happy that you're here.
Tell me what we're looking at in here. What have we got on the walls? Surrounded by beautiful things.
We've got a current newish series of works which depart from my normal figuration, which started as a group of chandeliers in Soho House in New York about 6-7 years ago. Green glass. And they were so beautiful, I made a few sketches of them and thought I'd use them one day. And put them away for 5 years and found them again and thought, yes. And it's a sort of deconstruction. They were very precisely drawn to begin with, and now they're barely recognisable.
So you find yourself going into more of an abstract zone?
Yes, I dip in and out of abstraction. I've never seen abstraction as being an enemy. It's all art is a kind of abstraction anyway.
Beautiful colours.
I'm hugely enjoying getting into oil paint again after 40 years of watercolour.
Yes, because you're famous as a watercolourist. What made you want to go back to oil?
The smell of turpentine, I think.
Which is, I noticed when I came in here, it smells lovely, yeah, lovely smell.
It's not particularly good for you, but it's the best of the solvents.
You've been in this space in Kensington for a while. You told me when I came in, was it 40 years, you said,
yeah,
when you first moved here? I
bought it in 1981.
Wow.
It was 49,000 for 4 rooms, kitchen and a bathroom.
Don't tell me that. That just kills me.
Well, it wasn't a very long lease, but no. we did something about that later.
How lovely. And it's you've got this lovely neighbourhood, which I just walked through to get here. Everything's accessible, you walk everywhere.
And I know people in the neighbourhood, and I like it, Yeah.
You're a bus taker and a...
I am a bus taker.
Yeah.
I'm actually a black taxi taker as well.
Yeah, yeah. If the bus doesn't turn up. But you first moved here back in the 60s into London?
Yeah, I lived in Earl's Court. Lived in Hogarth Road, Earl's Court, with a cousin of mine was living there, and about 5 or 4 other ne'er-do-well males.
That must have been quite something else.
It really was.
In the 60s. Wow.
Yes, I was a night cleaner at the Horseshoe Hotel.
Really?
Honestly, yeah, you can't make a living as a painter, and you can't. That's what I came to be a painter.
You came here to be a painter, and then Sass. We have a mutual friend, Sass Stein, and she said, "Oh, he used to be a roofer. I bet you don't know that."
I did. I graduated to being a roofer. I always, whatever job I had, I worked. I painted or drew for 8 hours a day on top of whatever I did. Because when you're young, you have boundless energy. I don't think I could be a roofer now. It was.
What's the energy, isn't it, that you need when you're younger to be able to do that, have that commitment of the day job or the night job, and then the rest of the time doing what you love.
Yes, it's easy when you're young.
Yeah. But you did have, I suppose it was, thinking back about it, I was going to say, because I think you had an exhibition already here in 1973, but I suppose that is quite a long time from when you first moved here to that moment. But how did you make that leap then from having to be the roofer, be the working in the pub to...
Well, I'm not sure it was gradual, and I've had a few strokes of luck over time. I can't remember the order of things, but I was living in East Dulwich, and I had an illness called sarcoidosis, which means it affects every joint in your body and your respiratory system. And I never thought I was going to get better. It was I couldn't even lift a cup. It took ages for me to lift a cup to drink from, and it lasted for several months. I went into King's College Hospital for a little while, and then and as I was recuperating, I have to preface this by the fact that before that I'd been to New York in 1970 something rather, and taken a bundle of drawings, and an art dealer had bought a whole slew of these drawings for himself, and I got a phone call when I was recuperating, and it was this American voice saying, "Hi, I'm Joan Ancrum." I'm not going to do the accent, and
we can imagine.
She said, "I've seen your work and we love it, and I have a gallery in Los Angeles, and I'd love to give you an exhibition." And I thought, Americans have got no patience, so I'm not going to say I'm recuperating from some illness. So I said, "Oh, that would be so great. When?" And she was thinking, "Well, we're thinking the spring." And I thought, and as I got better, I just made these works, and everything. I took them. I made a special big portfolio, and I blagged my way onto the plane with it. They wanted to put it in the hold, and I was not going to let it go in the hold, so I took it. I think it was Laker Airline, and I got to the gallery, she spread all the works out on it was carpeted, a huge room that they took people in behind the gallery, and she put them on the floor so we could choose the mouldings, because nobody in Los Angeles can see anything unless it's got gold leaf around it. and it went on the wall on a private view, and everything was sold, but before it went on the wall.
Wow, how brilliant that she noticed that. Is that why you painted, and that the first time you painted with watercolour, because you had...
No, yes, it was. That's what it was, because it was a lighter and easier medium for me to use. Yeah. And I sort of got hooked on it. What a visionary Joan Ancrum must be. So she had her own self-named, her own eponymous gallery. Yes, the Ancrum Gallery.
I don't believe is there anymore, but how brilliant that she spotted that talent in you. I
thank her.
Yeah.
No, she's fabulous.
Yeah, so it all sold out, and that was your big break.
Yeah, Sidney Poitier came to the private view, and he said he was going to have to meet me off the plane next time to buy something.
And did he?
No.
You came back to London for a while, and I wanted to ask you a bit about what London was like then with regards to your contemporaries in the art world, because obviously you had the likes of David Hockney, and it must have been quite a vibrant scene.
Yes, I actually was never a great mixer, so I was kind of always individual, which has really worked not in my favour, because a lot of things are done by, association with people. I never went to an art school, post-grad thing, which is where most connections are made.
Yeah, because you did your art in Hull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Hull. But
That's where you grew up.
Yeah. Well, I never really grew up. but
as it were.
as it were.
Mm.
And so that was Hull was the start of my interest in particularly women's fashion, women's hair, all of that, and I didn't think of it as fashion. It was just what they were wearing.
Yeah. So when you were in Hull, you were going out to. I've read somewhere that there's a nightclub there called the Locarno where you went out and spent your time drawing.
I did. I did. I really do not like drawing in public. I loathe it, but I had to steel myself to do it because luckily I have a pretty good visual memory. Not for a long. I can hold an image of somebody for about 24 hours or something like that, and it sort of fades. It's not so clear after a while because more images come on top of it, if you like.
Yeah.
But I did lots of drawings at Locarno. A bit of jiving.
The dancing. Is that so you don't like drawing in public because you feel sort of self-conscious?
I don't like any.
He's quite a self-effacing person.
I really, in the life room, I used to put barricades up so the tutor couldn't get behind me.
Really?
To look at drawing.
Is that because you were scared of being judged?
No, I'm not interested in anybody else's input.
I'm sure that stood you in good stead over the years. But was it different? I mean, like if you think about this area and what it was like in the 70s, in London in the 70s, I mean, you did have, I think Francis Bacon was a neighbour.
Yeah,
there does seem to be this sort of vibrant scene here.
He wasn't a close pal, but he was a nodding acquaintance, if you like. And I saw him from time to time at the Chelsea Arts Club, and he'd always look quizzically at me as if I was probably somebody he laid and forgotten about. But no, he's one of my great heroes of contemporary painting. Well, painting of that time.
Mm. And was he a hero of yours at that time?
Yeah, at art school, he was the main man.
Really? Yeah.
And David Hockney was an inspiration because he was doing things that were not commonly done. I saw some work. Michael Compton, who was the director of the Ferrens Art Gallery in Hull, acquired a very early Hockney, and he had a few on a group exhibition. And I saw them and thought, this is amazing. It's another way of looking at things.
Yeah. So how did you carve out a niche for yourself then, if you, as you said, were not on the scene much or weren't?
I don't know, just luck, I suppose. I mean, when I was first in London, excuse me, I went to see William Coldstream at the Slade because I was a little bit out on a limb. I didn't really know anybody in London, and I wanted some kind of feedback on the work I was doing, and I took some paintings into him, and he was very encouraging and lovely. And he put me in touch with a painter called Michael Andrews, who was not a close friend, but a friend, and who found the gallery for me, the New Grafton. So that's the way that worked.
Wow. You spent 20 years living in New York.
Yes, that's the later part of it, if you like. 10, we've been back about 10 years now, but 20 years in New York, yeah.
Yeah, such a long time.
Didn't seem like it.
Yeah. So it was mid-90s that you moved out there, was it?
Yeah, 95 to whenever 20 years after that is.
What made you want to move over there?
I'd done a few portraits. I don't do portraits anymore. Well, very occasionally. But I'd done a portrait, and I'd done some painting for somebody who lived on Central Park West, and I got a commission to paint a couple. Arnold and Lila Ross, very wealthy people on Central Park West with fabulous apartment. But I had nowhere to stay, and some other friends who I'd done a portrait of their children offered us their apartment because they were in Mustique or somewhere like that at that point. So we went over for a month, I think it was, and I painted, did what I had to do. And whilst I was there, the couple came back and they threw a party for me, and this gallerist came along and saw the work and had a gallery there. They said they'd give me an exhibition on the provided I painted the pictures in New York. So we packed up everything here, rang up Stanley Bard at the Chelsea Hotel, who I'd never met, and said, we're coming to New York. You know, he said, well, I'm not going to do anything over the phone. Just see me when you come here. So we arrived with 17 pieces of luggage, no reservation. And
you stayed there for 20 years?
Yeah. As somebody, Caroline said, what the concierge, one of the concierges said to Caroline, so how long are you staying? She said, we're staying for a year. And he said, oh, you'll leave feet first, like they all do.
Oh, yeah, that's the famous line from the Chelsea Hotel, isn't it? And why did you want to stay there particularly?
Because it was the best place ever.
Yeah. Yeah, because it already had a legendary reputation.
That wasn't really relevant. It was what it was at that moment. It was a community of artists and people we loved, and I miss it.
Who was there? Who else lived there? Who was there when you moved in?
Oh my gosh!
Because obviously it was famous for Warhol filming Chelsea Girls there, and all the famous people like Jack Kerouac and writing on the road. And
well, Didi Ramone was a neighbour, and I did quite a few drawings with Didi. It was hard to get him to sit still because he was very interested in narcotics.
Did he keep falling asleep?
No, he didn't keep falling asleep. Quite the reverse.
Oh, right.
He was, but he was very twitchy. Really lovely human being.
When you're drawing or painting someone, do you have a technique for making them feel at ease, or does it depend?
I just talk to them. I let them talk.
Yeah. And do you direct them to sit or stand a certain way? Or?
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
I try to corral them.
Yeah. I suppose some people don't like being corralled or.
Well, you know, I'm not I don't have rigid things about it. I wait to see how people are. It's a bit like a dance itself. You know, you get to know people over a course of time. Yeah. And I always lie about how long it's going to take, because it takes always much longer than people think.
It's like take a minute and then yeah.
Well, sitting's never gone for about more than 2 hours, because that way the sitter is still engaged, and the artist is still, you know, that's a good length. Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of those 2 hours involved.
Quentin Crisp, didn't you draw or paint?
Yeah, Quentin. I got a job in the 70s, I think, late 70s, teaching an adult life class.
In London?
In London.
Yeah.
And I got an exercise book with different names in it, and there was this name, Quentin Crisp, which meant nothing to me. He wasn't famous. He wasn't then the naked. He actually was the naked civil servant, so he came along, and normally if you're taking a life class, which I have rarely done, but you get to set the pose. But he took this heroic pose, and I thought, yeah, let's see you hold that. I thought to myself, and he held it for about an hour and a half. Very impressive. I saw him years later. We'd moved the Chelsea in that. And I saw
He
him.
lived in the Hotel Chelsea.
He
himself,
did only for about a couple of weeks. But I saw him at the Chelsea Arts Club in London when we were on one of our trips, and I said, Quentin, I drew you about 25 years ago, whatever it was ago. You're in New York. Would you come and sit for me? He said, yes, my number's in the phone book. And I thought, yeah, that's a kiss off, that's, and it was in the phone book. And I rang him and left a message, and he rang back and said, I can't remember what it is I promised to do. Will you let me know?
Oh, brilliant.
So he came to sit for me, and his fee was I buy him lunch and transportation. That was it.
Was that in London that he sat for you?
No, in New York.
In New York, yeah.
Yeah, we used to go to the Empire Diner because my studio was on 26th Street. We'd mince up the road to the to the Empire Diner, and he'd just chat endlessly. He had a piano player there called B. Lyons, and she played, American classics. She wandered over to our table and said, "Have you any requests?" And he said, "Yes, I'd rather you didn't play."
Did they understand his humour?
It wasn't humorous. That wasn't humorous. He meant it.
So brilliant. Where is that painting now?
Of Quentin, I've got the portrait head of him. Did a lot of drawings of him.
Right. So you've got quite a few in permanent collections. I know you've got like John Gielgud in the portrait gallery.
And Jean Muir.
Jean Muir, got the great fashion designer Jean Muir.
Well, she didn't really believe in fashion. She just believed in good design. She said that.
Was she a friend of yours?
Yeah. She became a very good friend, and it was just a walk actually to, behind the Albert Mansions.
That's where she lived.
Yeah.
When was that? So you drew her or painted her in the early 80s as well, wasn't it? 82, I think.
Probably.
That's a lovely painting, and that is in the permanent collection at the National Portrait Gallery now.
Unfortunately, because it's a watercolour, it doesn't come out very often.
That's a shame. You have to let me know next time it's out.
So I would. I never know.
They don't tell you.
No, I don't ask.
No.
No, I've got some notes because I've known quite a few designers in my time, starting with Zandra.
Oh yes, you told me about Zandra when I last met you. So tell me about how you know Zandra.
Well, Zandra used to live.
Zandra Rhodes.
Yeah. Used to live in the basement in a road in Notting Hill Gate, above where my ex-wife lived, and she had her studio was on Porchester Road. Anyway, I come back from Suffolk, a sort of not very good stay in Suffolk because I thought it was a good idea to go and live there. And so she became my landlady. She had a room at the top. It had no facilities. It had one...
But when was this?
1970s.
Right. 1970s Notting Hill.
Yeah. Porchester Road.
Right, yeah.
And that's her studio. So this grotty room at the top of it, she had one loo, which was 3 flights down, one cold tap, and that was it. It was Spartan living.
How long did you last there then?
I can't remember. There's several, best part of a year probably. Had to go to the Porchester baths to
just to get clean.
Yeah, clean up.
And did you paint Zandra?
I drew her, but didn't draw her. I've got a drawing of her in here actually.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Sorry about the noises.
No, noises are good. Oh wow.
When we start drawing someone, they're endless drawings. So that's Jean.
Oh, that's a sketch of Jean.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's an early Jean drawing.
Wow. Did Zandra have pink hair then?
I think it was mauve. Oh, it's not in here.
Wasn't a normal colour. great to have seen those Jean sketches. And Prudence, I didn't know about her.
Oh, do you not?
No.
She was absolutely fantastic. Ah, this is the one I was looking for.
Oh yes.
This is Sandra Dancy,
Oh, yeah, I can recognise her.
and this is Sandra in one of her beautiful dresses of that time.
Gosh. So this is when you were her tenant.
No, this was after that.
All right.
And I wonder why she was so quiet, because I hate people watching me what I'm drawing, and she was quiet, and Sandra is incredibly nosy. But there was a mirror behind me which I'd completely forgotten about, so she was watching.
She was looking at herself.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And are you still in touch with her?
Yeah. We're not besties, but we're pals.
Mm. You have always had this connection with, there was a running thread in a connection with fashion and designers and
yes,
in your work.
It wasn't sought out. It just happened, there was other people, involved with fashion. I've wrote down because I forget these things.
Who else have you got?
English eccentrics we met. We spoke about earlier. There was Sandra, Cynthia Rowley, who was an American designer.
Yes. So was that what? Did you meet her while you were living in New York?
Yeah, I did a drawing that I'm really pleased with. I don't think Cynthia was, but I don't know.
Did she commission it?
No. I don't bother with that sort of stuff. If I want to draw someone, draw.
So you do, and why didn't she like it?
Well, you'd have to ask Cynthia. It's good. It's a good drawing. It's one I'm really pleased with. The one that really was a big sort of thing for me was when Stella McCartney rang me up when I was in New York.
So Stella, this was when she was launching her own fashion line.
Yes.
It was the first collection.
Her first collection.
Was that 2001?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And she rang up and she said she didn't want to tell me who she was because she thought I'd hear ka-ching, ka-ching, but she had to tell me because otherwise. And she said she'd seen a drawing of mine on the cover of a magazine, a rather rude drawing actually, from the 70s, which was in a collection of magazines that her father had. And she really wanted a look-alike of this model. She'd found one, and she wanted me to do drawings. Mm. I mean, it was extraordinary.
So she wanted you to do drawings for the campaign.
Yeah,
for the advertising campaign.
Yeah, and it was actually unheard of for someone to do drawings and not photographs at that time. So it was, I think, a really brave thing. She is brave,
Do you think she's brave? Yeah.
I think she's incredible. Mm. I love it a bit.
So you agreed to do it, and I think because you were living in New York then, but you flew back to London. There was some issue
I
with
wasn't
the
going
models.
to. I wasn't going to. The model. I can't remember where she was from, but she couldn't get a visa because of it just after 9/11, and it was hard to get. Mm. So Stella said, "Well, I'll put you up in Paris or London." I said, "Well, you put me up in Paris, I'll never get anything done, so it better be London." So she put me up in Elizabeth Taylor's old suite at Dorchester.
Oh, lovely.
It was humongous. And that's where I was. So
you did a series of sketches of the model, and eventually they were used for the campaign, and then they were used on these massive, I've seen photos which you sent me actually, or your wife Caroline sent them to me maybe, enormous billboards up in New York.
Yeah, it was on the side of the Mondrian Hotel. It was 10 stories high.
Wow. What was it like walking past and seeing?
Well, it's quite an ego trip, actually.
Were you pleased with how the drawings came out?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was surprised. I really worked like a dog, on them. They needed to be done in a short time.
Was Stella happy?
You'd have to ask Stella.
I mean, I suppose she wasn't that she did use them, but
she did. I think some of them won awards or something. Anyway.
Amazing, yeah.
That was then.
And you, just going back to this fashion thing, because you've got quite a distinctive look yourself. And you always.
Well, I'm not wearing shades at the moment, which I normally do.
Yeah, it's the shades, the hat. Where did that come from?
Well, the hat, I guess I've got a little one of those prayers that sort of Victorian and Edwardian people had printed on the card, and it's a Saron primer. It says "God be in my head," and in my understanding, etc., etc. And my grandmother gave it to me, and so I wrote on the top of it, "And geezers be in my hat," and drew this little person with a hat. So I must have always, it's always been there.
Yeah, and then you wear this. Is it sort of like a uniform? I mean, do you wear the same thing every day?
I don't regard it. Yeah.
It's white shirt, black blazer.
Well, I've got no imagination.
So is it an ease thing? Is it just an ease?
I like it. It's always the same. I'm not going to tell you the sign because I feel embarrassed about.
Go on.
Okay. Well, this is like a very ancient Prada cashmere jacket.
That's beautiful.
Well, the lining is African fabric, which I had put in after they didn't put.
So it's got like a very bright coloured pattern inside. Do you like that? Do you like the kind of unexpected? You know that they're bright inside. Paul
Smith did some really nice, vibrant linings, and I had some of those jackets. And if he did those linings, I'd have some more of his jackets.
Do you think that is a reflection of your own personality? Bright on the inside?
I don't know. Yes.
That's beautiful, though. I love that. And you've got your pens in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, going back to New York, I mean, you mentioned 9/11, and I just realised that were you there? Were you in New York?
No, we were in there. Caroline had gone out to the gym, and I was talking to someone on the phone who lived in Brooklyn, and she was actually Ron Chernow, the writer's wife, Valerie Chernow, and we were chatting away, and she said, "Oh, Ron said there's a fire, there's a smoke billowing from the trade centre, and she said I have to go." And I looked out of my window and I could see the smoke rising. I went up onto the roof and I could see this gaping hole in the building. I ran downstairs, got a movie camera which I'd recently bought, and took it up there, but I found I couldn't do it. I couldn't film it because it was like clearly people were going to be dying in that space. I don't know. I'm not couldn't never be a documentary war correspondent or something like that. Although I admire them, that it's not for me. And as I was, and then Caroline came back. I was relieved, and her office looked out onto the towers, and we saw the second hole appear in the towers, and we were just wept.
And it must have really changed the whole atmosphere of where you were living and everything.
Yeah, it changed New York. I think it changed New York forever. Because New York had this kind of confidence to it, and it's which is part of its thing.
Did it change your work?
No, I don't. Well, maybe unconsciously, but not consciously. I never made works about it. But in the aftermath and the days after, we went and made sandwiches for, in a restaurant that we know, because a lot of people donated food for people around there. But it was a bit, they didn't want to take random food donations for obvious reasons. So if it was a legitimate restaurant, that was donating, it'd be great. So we did that. I don't know.
All times. Also, while you were living in New York, I wanted to talk about your series of your dogs paintings and dogs in general. You have a love of dogs.
Yeah.
Or you painted them a lot, and owners with dogs.
Yes, I never thought I'd do that. I'm not a pet painter. But actually, I did make a drawing a long time ago.
Do you have a dog?
I had a dog. And his name
What kind of dog? Which breed?
German Shepherd.
Oh,
He was fabulous.
what was his name?
Blue.
Blue.
This is a drawing I made a long time ago in the park.
Oh wow.
Jumping dog. And she came to the park quite a few times, and she always wore the same stuff, like a big great coat, a long shirt, and black trousers. And she made this dog jump up and down. And I don't know if she's even aware that I was doing these things, but so that became that was an early precursor. And then I was drawing Alan Cumming.
So he was a neighbour he lived also in the hotel?
No, he lived in the East Village.
Right.
But he was in cabaret at the time, and I thought, oh God, I got to draw this man. And he came to sit for me, and I started drawing. And the second time he came, he brought a dog with him, and it was just so enchanting, the whole thing of it. He was obviously in love with the dog, and then we knew someone else who had a dog. I think his name, Mayor Russ, who wrote for a magazine writer, who had a dog called Louise, which is a bull terrier, which is a white bull terrier.
Oh,
and she said, I drew him, and it was just this. It just grew like that, without.
Was that because you like the way you're observing? Did Alan Cummings or any sitter with a dog? Did the way they behave change because of the presence of the dog?
Yes, it did. I mean, the dog is a great distractor of both sitter and drawer, really.
Yeah.
But I try to be as objective as I can.
And so you did quite a few drawings of people with their dogs.
Loads.
Because you have a whole book of books.
Yes.
The book's called We Think the World of You.
Well, that's from an A.J. Ackley book, which I recommend to anybody to read. It's a beautiful narration of what it's like to have a dog.
Oh. And you also drew Ethan Hawke?
Ethan is a real pal.
Is he?
Yeah, no.
What's he like?
He's the nicest human being.
How do you know him?
Because he lived in the Chelsea Hotel. I think he was breaking up from his first marriage or something like that, and he was living there. He wasn't happy. He made a little movie, called Chelsea Wars, which is beautiful movie.
Is that in the hotel?
Yeah.
But yeah, why did you leave? What made you decide to leave in the end?
Because it was taken over. Stanley lost control of it, from some little infraction that he'd done, like not holding money back from the other shareholders or something. I don't know what it was, but he lost control in court, and the other shareholders got the right to manage it. and they put in this developer's person managing it, and it got sold. And there, the developer wanted everybody out.
But there were some tenants just kept living there.
Oh yeah.
Even though it was turned into a building site, pretty much.
Yes, it's, so far as I'm concerned, the Chelsea Hotel doesn't exist anymore. I mean,
what is it now? Apartments?
No, it's hotel and apartments, and people have stayed there and said it's nice, but they have nothing to compare it with. Before, it was a real community. So now there's kind of discord. People that left it are sort of, not loved by the people that are still there, if you know what I mean. So I mean, we were a family. I loved the people in it. Mm-hmm. Still do.
What about dancing? Because I know you're a huge fan of dance. You dance yourself.
I do.
And you always have. And you paint dancers, and some of your most well-known paintings are paintings of people dancing.
Yeah, I try to get everybody dancing. Are you up for it? I'm going to put some music on.
Do you still do you dance on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Afro
beats, hour a day, roughly.
And you've painted, and you have a lot of paintings featuring people dancing.
Yeah.
Tell me about why. What about that appeals to you?
Well, even in my drawings, mostly people are off kilter. They're not. They couldn't sustain their pose as I draw them, and I don't know why that is. And that's a kind of quite neatly segues into dancing, because dancing is not one movement. It's a continuous or series of movements, isn't it? It's like that Laurie Anderson song, which goes, walking and falling. Walking is a process of falling. You take one step, you're actually falling, and you catch up by putting a foot there and stopping yourself falling.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And you have when I first came into your studio today, there's a painting of two women dancing that you painted in 1986.
Yeah, it's very static, I think, that painting. We're looking at it now, but that's English eccentrics. There are some more drawings which are a bit more got more movement in it. But because that's oil, and I really wanted to get what they were wearing.
Yeah.
In fact, I usually borrow clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I can see that. There's got the nice patterns.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little dress behind you on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was commissioned to paint these sisters, twins, in New York, and they wanted to choose something. So I thought, I don't want to commit to painting. I'd done this paint. I don't want to commit to doing this. So I borrowed the dress, did a thing like that, so I could see what it would be like. I made a pattern of it, and I'd just done something for Fortnum & Mason, but somebody who won the Diamond, the Jubilee.
Oh yes, you did the tea rooms at Fortnum. You painted the tea rooms at Fortnum & Mason.
I did. Yeah.
Are they are they on are the paintings on the walls themselves, or are they paintings that hang on the walls?
No, they are paintings that hang on the walls. Yeah.
Are they still there?
They are. That one's there now too.
I must have more tea at Fortnum's.
It ruins dinner though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is delicious.
But you sort of, do you think you have become a bit of a figure of the establishment, would you say? I mean, you've been...
No way. No, I'm never going to be a figure of the establishment.
What about your... you were awarded an MBE.
I was.
Services
for
to
no,
British Art in
for
America.
no good reason.
Services to British art in America. That's while you were in America then?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you come back and kneel before the Queen for that?
I actually kneel before the current king.
Right.
But yes.
A friend of mine's been awarded an OBE and she's having it tomorrow. The ceremony's tomorrow, but she thinks that it's not going to be King Charles because he's apparently abroad. So she thinks it might be Princess Anne.
Oh, don't you love Anne? I love Princess Anne. She's just such a quiet worker for good things, you know.
She really does have style.
Yeah.
As well. What a look.
Yeah. I'm not saying anything negative about the current. They're good people.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were elected a member of the Royal Academy of Arts.
Yes, that was really lovely. I hugely enjoy being. This is one part of the establishment I really hugely enjoy, and I'm on a mission to make it more democratic and have more women in it. And when I was elected, the person over there, Sonia Lawson.
Yes.
Sonia Lawson said to me, "I didn't want to vote for you, David." She said, "I did vote for you because I wanted a woman in." She said, and I think there were probably only about 8 or 10, I don't know, very few women were in at that point. She said, "I wanted a woman in. There are far too few. I want you to promise that you will help to get more women elected." And I said, I promise I will. And I have. And also, there were no people who were not white in. Well, there were two, and it doesn't reflect who we are. So I want it to be democratic. I want it to be inclusive.
Yeah. And you, because this past summer, you curated the summer exhibition.
Yeah.
There, which was a massive success.
Apparently it was.
Well, I know, because I also, for this podcast series, I also interviewed Richard Malone.
Well, I commissioned him. I got permission to commission. And he had the sort of, his piece in the exhibition was sort of almost like that became the focal point, and it was used on the posters for the show. Well, I had a vision of what I wanted in the rotunda, and I was kind of pushy and bolshy because I said I wanted to, I'd seen a photograph online of Richard's a fashion show where there was a male model who was a very good-looking black guy with a strikingly handsome, with this blue outfit. I don't know, how do you describe it, but it had sort of rods going through it. And I thought, that's not fashion, that's sculpture. It's both. So I thought, if you made that larger, it would, and suspended it, not with the poor guy there, but suspended it there. I didn't know, because I didn't know if it would work without the person, the model, or was it? But so I said to Richard, so he sent me some sketches, and I said, and I love that colour, by the way.
Sort of royal blue.
That sort of, whatever it is, So he just made it. His father and he did welded the armature, and yeah.
And it looked stunning, and I know from speaking to him, he was so delighted and adores you.
It's mutual.
So, yeah. Oh. But you had a theme for the exhibition, which was Only Connect.
Yeah.
That's from you talk about where that's from.
Well, it's from Howard's End by Ian Forster, and I chose it. I didn't even know there was a TV program called Only Connect. Somebody said, "Oh, you name it after the TV program."
Don't ask me.
Don't have a TV. Anyway, so we partly because of Brexit lockdown, COVID, all of these things, and the growing isolation of people who only communicate by telephone. They're never in the moment. They're always walking, looking at their phone. They wouldn't be doing the Laurie Anderson thing. They're just walking and phoning, you know. So, so they're never taking in what's around them. Even at tables, at dining tables, people sitting opposite each other, looking at their phones. People walking their children in pushchairs, looking at their phones, walking their dog, looking at their phones. Why don't you get in the moment? Why don't you enjoy the park? Why don't you sit, look at the birds? You know, communicate with other people. Mm-hmm. So that was what that's about.
Loved it. Loved the exhibition as well. Why do you think people... I mean, people did seem to really love it this year as well.
I get enormous feedback from it. They did really love it. Yeah. I really put my heart into it. I don't do anything unless I do it fully. So I spent way too much time there, taking people round, showing people, and people appreciated it.
Very nice. I was actually Maria Belshaw, who's the director at Tate.
Oh, she's fabulous.
She did a podcast that I was recording recently, and she was talking about that moment after the pandemic when people started streaming back into the galleries, and she said that she saw people weeping to be able to stand in front of art again, but with other people as well, to be with other people in the same space looking at art.
She's right. She's such good news. Maria.
Yeah.
No, she is. She's a breath of fresh air.
Well, she's very, to your point about what you were just saying about wanting to bring in more women, more diversity, she's
on
very
it.
much
She's
about
on
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the people that I was able to get in the summer exhibition, I'd only seen because of that show Between the Islands, which I think was one of the most fabulous shows. Beautifully curated.
So, and you've got a show coming up, I read, in 2025, a retrospective.
I should live so long.
So it's curated by Geraldine Mulcahy, I can't pronounce her name, Mulcahy Parker. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, I'm sure.
So it's in Beverley.
It is.
East Riding.
Yeah.
So it's a retrospective?
Well, it's a small retrospective. Yeah. I'm very excited about it. I love Beverley. I love Hull, you know. I don't live there, but I love it. But Beverley is a very special little... Is it a city? Town?
I don't know, I think...
It has a minster. It doesn't have a cathedral.
No.
It's a cathedral that makes a place a city.
I think that's right, yeah. Must be a town.
Yeah.
A large town.
Not that large. It has a race course.
And have you... It must be strange for a retrospective. Are you pulling stuff... I mean, are people lending work?
I don't know.
She's tracking it all down, presumably.
I'm not doing any of it.
Great. Well, that's exciting. And are you working on any new stuff? Always working? Or?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
You're painting every day?
I draw every day, and I paint most days. I have 9 months has been quite, invasive for my time, so I haven't been able to paint. The 9 months, same gestation period for having a baby, as Caroline pointed out. So the summer exhibition.
So that was 9 months you were working on that?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
You birthed it.
Well, no, I had just the best team ever, and the staff at the Royal Academy. You know, I love these people.
Brilliant. All right, thank you, David, for talking to me.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that. such a long time as well. Sorry, I kept you going because there was so much to talk about that I couldn't
You should
stop.
just wind me up when I don't stop.
Yeah.
You've been listening to In Talks with me, Danielle Radojcin. The sound and theme music is by Woogie Productions and the artwork is by Patrick Waugh. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it on to someone who you think might also like it. Please subscribe and leave a review. To pitch for guest ideas, you can DM me via my socials at Danielle Radojcin. Thanks for listening.